And welcome, Kimberly Maska. It's such a pleasure to see you. And I'm so happy that you decided to join again. You joined our first summit in summer, and we talked about opportunity there. And I would love to continue the conversation with you, but obviously we'll welcome a few new people to the audience for sure. And I think we should start by introducing you. And I admire you a lot because you actually positioned yourself and you are living the life of a spiritual business coach. So welcome, Kimberly. Maybe you say a few words about yourself and share with us your magic.
Yeah, thank you so much. I had such a great time last time, so I was super excited to see the invite again. But yeah, so I get to live the most incredible life as a spiritual business coach, which sometimes people, I remember when I first started doing this, it's been a decade now. And when I first would say spiritual and business, people are like, that's an oxymoron. What are you talking about? But now it's a little more mainstream. Like the hate mail I used to get was crazy, but now it's more mainstream. And I love what I do, because in my past life, my 3D life, I actually worked on Wall Street, helped co-create a $165 million company with 8 partners. And what's just nuts is that we get so caught in the idea of money and what that 3D money is and how do you create it in the 3D. And then when you go to switch to doing it into the 5D as a spiritual entrepreneur, everything changes. It's very, very different. And so I get to talk about that and show people how to do that. And I integrate the 3D with the 5D, which is amazing.
Great, Kimberly. Tell us a bit, what do you mean by 5D?
Yes. So the 5D is when it just feels good, when we're in flow. It's the divine flow, when we just like, this is incredible. Life is amazing. Things just kind of show up. We don't have to work so hard. We've been so conditioned to believe that in order to create abundance, we have to work hard. It's if anyone says, how do I make more money? What do we think? Like, I'm going to work more hours. I'm going to get a raise in this job. We are so tied to that. And there's so many ways to create abundance and money. And it's easy. It should be super easy when you're in your flow. So that's the 5D money.
All right. I mean, this fits perfectly. As you know, we call this summit Stay Sane and Make It Rain. And actually, it is exactly that, right? So what is the mindset around abundance and growth? And how does that actually lead to more income, more money, more wealth, more fulfillment? And I think you are a real good specialist to talk about that. So let's talk a bit about the mindset of abundance. Do you want to start with that maybe?
Sure. Gosh, this is the thing. It's so funny, especially when I talk about that 5D money. People are like, well, what is it? Like, is there a portal I have to go through? And it's like, I wish it was that easy, but it's a way of being. Like that abundance and prosperity mindset. I call it the prosperity vortex. That prosperity vortex is divine flow, and it's a way of being. So we have to feel it. We have to think it. We have to know it. But that mindset, it starts with the mind, because as soon as we get weak in our thoughts and our thoughts start to go into this moments of scarcity and lack, then everything changes. Then our world will reflect back to us what we're thinking and what we're feeling. So we get into panic and we fall into scarcity, and we all know those emotions. We've all had them. And when we have that moment, then what we're doing is we're repelling the prosperity that's our birthright, which should be that divine flow. And so mastering our thoughts is such an interesting challenge for all of us. I fail at it every day. We all do. But being able to have the awareness that we're failing is the key piece. and really working on that so that we can be in the prosperity vortex and be that versus doing anything to get there.
Yeah. So totally get that. But as you mentioned, rightly so, right? We all fall into that trap of scarcity at times. Now it's the end of the year. We all know the feeling. January comes for sure. Don't know how it is for you, but my bills are piling up since 2 weeks. And obviously, I'm not the only one on this planet. So what do you do? I mean, what do you practically do about that?
Yes. So, gosh, the practical piece, and it should be so easy and it sounds easy, but we know what we go through internally. And I'll admit, I actually went through something just a couple of weeks ago and even earlier this week about something where I fell into a moment of scarcity and I could feel it. And I was sharing before we hit record, I'm in an area in the United States in Asheville, North Carolina, that went through a crazy hurricane, and we had a lot of damage. And so I'm having to look at all these things and can easily fall into scarcity about the money that's going out and how to repair. And it's so easy to fall into the scarcity. So easy. And even though like I teach this stuff, it's like you can still happen, but the awareness is like catching it. So when we have that feeling, it's the awareness. It's like, oh, wait a minute, hang on a second. And then my husband has a beautiful way of saying it. And we all know it's so as above, so below. So if I have chaos happening down here in my 3D reality, then something must be happening in the 5D realm that's creating this. So we can look at like, what's the reason? Because we all know anytime we go through any kind of contrast, it's there to expand our consciousness. Right. So we step back and go, oh, okay, my higher self has delivered this to be able to expand my consciousness. So what do I have to do so that I can create order again in the 5D, which then will bring the order again in my 3D. And when we can look at it that way, I think it shifts everything a bit for us.
Right. So basically it's about the awareness of what is this moment or this situation teaching me, right?
Yep.
Right. But the subconscious does actually play a big role, doesn't it?
Does. Oh, does it? Yes.
Oh, does it? Okay. So how do we deal with that?
Gosh, Sue, that's the work. Because it's subconscious in the moment, we don't know. So what we have to do is we have to be constantly doing the work to be able to dig in there and do the shadow work. Like what is hiding in there? I like to call it the glass prison, because we came into this beautiful world clean and pristine and just knowing we were connected with source, and then we forgot. And every time something happened in our lives, and as light workers, a lot of times we go through crazy traumas. So every time something happened, there's this like brick, and it's a glass brick because we don't really see it. We kind of know it's there. And we have this glass prison that builds up, and then we have goals and we can't hit them. We're hitting our head up against this glass wall going, why can't that happen? And that's those subconscious beliefs. So we have to break down that glass prison. We have to be doing the work to always be doing the inner work, doing inner reflection, journaling. Like, what is that? Working with healers that can help us go into who we are. And the closer we get to the truth of who we are, those subconscious beliefs start to go away. But it's work. It's no joke. Joke.
It is true work, right? You put it right. So also you were talking a lot about like growth-oriented affirmations, for example, right? So how does that play a role? Because if I do the work with my clients, it's mostly structure, business related strategy, and then we always move into the psychology. It's very interesting, right? You start with actually, there's a problem in my P&L. From there, I would move into, okay, let's look at what is your company's energy, what's your company's identity, and how do you as a CEO, as an owner, actually relate to that? And there is some shadow there oftentimes, right? And often a big disconnect, especially if the company doesn't really do what you expect it to do. So growth and growth affirmations, I'm super curious, because that's something I would love to apply to a lot of these people I help, is how do you work with growth affirmations? How does that work?
Yeah. So I like to call them, instead of affirmations, I like to call them creation statements. Because we have to remember how powerful we are and that we get to create. And I think affirmations start to not work because it almost feels like we're reaching outside of ourselves for something. And
so it's something outside. Yeah, I get it. So it's kind of something you don't believe in yourself.
Exactly. So I like to bring it in and remind ourselves, like, how powerful are we? And then actually demand from the universe, God, source, infinite intelligence, the greater they all, actually demand what you require. And it will be this way. So if we can start to be more of specific on what we want, because it has to be specific, and then it will be, and it is done. And when we pull that in, it's like, this will occur and it is done. And then give it time, because we say it, and then we're like, well, the next day we're like, well, why isn't there 10 grand in my bank account, right? So,
It's like,
so,
yeah.
so we have to, but it's a creation. What is it that you want to create? And you state it as like a demand, and let it be done, because we are so powerful. We have to remember, and not to go religious or dogmatic, but in the Bible, it's like God who created us in his image as creators. That's what we are. We are creators, created through your words. So if we can remember that and be like, oh yeah, we create through our words, and we know that. Even if you go way spiritual or however you look at it, we know we create with it. So pay attention to what you're saying and create with your words, and be able to just say, yes, I'm creating. This is the statement based off of what you're trying to do. And then it can just be ended. So it is done, and allow it to manifest.
Yeah, that's a good point. I often refer to words as spells, right? There are spells. So people have to be very aware. I call it, language hygiene in a way, because, also the self-talk starts with the self-talk. Oh, I can't do that. Oh, I can't. I don't know how to do that. I don't, it starts there. And I think that's a very big point you're making. Now, you said creation, right? Instead of affirmation.
Correct.
How did you call it?
Well, I call them creation statements to remind us that we are the creator of what we're doing. We get to create with our words. So that's why.
Can you give us an example, Kimberly? Sorry to interrupt you.
Sure, that's okay. Let me think of one. I knew you were going to say this, and as we were talking about it, my little brain was like, "Get a good one."
No pressure.
So it could be something like, "Let there be an abundance of clients that are absolutely connected to what I'm doing next month." You could get more clear. Let there be 15 clients that come into my reality that know they must work with me. Let there be, and it's a let there be. Just like if you think about the creation statement in the Bible, let there be light, let there be. It's like we get to do that. Like that's our gift. That is such a beautiful gift, and we mess it up because we allow the self-talking to happen, and then we start saying, "I can't do that. I can't afford this, or that's too hard," or that. And so you get to keep that if you want to. That's what you want to create.
You'll keep it.
Yeah,
because that's kind of the thing, right? Even if you make a creation statement, in the back of your head, you might have this nagging feeling that there's actually scarcity, right? Scarcity. So how do you deal with that? Like, how do you overwrite this kind of, let's make it a real example. Like you have nothing on your bank account, you have bills to pay. And now you're basically making this beautiful creation statement. How do you overwrite this terrible awareness of there's not enough, right?
Yep. So that's why I don't like affirmation. Because the affirmation is, I am wealthy, I am abundant. And then your brain is going, no, you're not. If you look at your account, you're like, no.
Yes, right. Exactly.
So the way I like to look at it is you can look at your bank account and you'd be like, holy cow, there's nothing in there. And then you get the power of, well, let there be what you need in your bank account. Let there be $500 that come into my reality. I am going to release how it comes in, and it is done. And
that is fantastic. Yeah, that's such a good point.
Yeah.
It feels different too, right? So if you give the command, it feels also like you're empowered, which is interesting.
Yeah. It's hugely empowering. And then you get to remember. And then when you see it come in, and we have to let go of the expectation of how or when. So we just have to hold it. Let there be the $500 I need to pay the car payment, and release how it comes in. And I have heard the most incredible stories and had them happen to myself where just money comes in the most random way. And you're like, where did that come from? Like, I remember having an affiliate commission that would come in every month for something. And it was like, I don't know, $300, whatever it was. And there was one time I was like, I really need some funds. And I worked on my creation statements of what I needed. And then my next affiliate commission was $3,600. Wow. No rhyme or reason. And I did not question how it came to me. It just came to me. It did. I needed it. It was the amount I was looking for, and I just allowed it to be. Because it's just energy. It's just money flying around in the world. So it can come in however we want, or even however the universe wants to deliver it. And so we have to let go of the expectation of how.
Yeah, that's actually super important. I think the timeline part is something we experience all the time. We all experience it all the time, right? Because we have this great plan and then we make God laugh, right? Because he's going, yeah, a great plan, right? But then something happens, like you just mentioned, the tornado you experienced, sadly, like it throws the timeline off, but it might not throw the actual intention off, right? It's just on a different timeline. So I think the independence of time is clear. Where a lot of my clients, at least, because they're very left-brained normally, as CEOs are, as you know, right, and company owners. So the how is actually, that's a really difficult one to let go, I think. So, if you do this great, I love this word, creation statement. The first thing, I just hear everybody go, also our audience here going, okay, but how should that happen? So how do you kind of how, whilst I get, and I think a lot of people will get the timeline thing because we've all experienced it. How here we go. How do you let go of the how?
Yep. So it is not easy because we have been conditioned
Totally
to know how. And I'm very guilty of it too. I'm like, well, how? And I want to see it now. It's like, well, that can't be happening because I don't see it happening. That's the famous. I don't see it. Didn't happen. Yeah. And in that moment of saying, I don't see it, we've now blocked the energy of it coming in because now we've fallen into scarcity. Yes. So the real how is to catch yourself when you fall into that. Well, I don't see it. It's not here. Like what can, I have clients that will, I talk about giving money out, tithing in a different way. I call it impact tithing. And I had a client one time who said, well, I'm going to impact tithe like $1,000 this month. It was more than she could actually do, but if she did like her 20% or 30, whatever it was, but it was more than, and then like 30 days later, she's like, but the money didn't come back. And I'm like, well, your expectation of it is going to propel it away. So we just have to be aware that we're releasing the expectation. And as soon as you go, well, I don't see it, or how is this going to happen? You have to stop. You have to catch your thoughts and be like, nope, I'm just trusting. I'm just trusting.
Yeah.
Back to trust, it will show up. I've manifested $100,000 in 48 hours one time.
And, that's amazing.
And it was just a thought. I wasn't doing this yet. I was flipping houses at the time. Yeah. And I remember sitting on the couch and I was like, if I had an extra $100,000, I could do this, this, and this. It was literally just a thought. I didn't even do a creation statement around it. I don't think I had developed that yet at that time. I just had the idea. I'm like, if I had this, that would be really cool. And then I just let it go. And within 2 days, someone I knew showed up out of the blue and said, I have $100,000 I'd like to invest with your company.
That's amazing.
Okay. Yeah.
Well,
so, yeah.
That's amazing, Kimberly. Yeah, that's great. So, let's go quickly, because I don't want to keep you for too long, but if we're looking at, the connection between the mind and the rain, right? So stay sane, make it rain. Is there like one thing you would say that's a daily practice? We talked about it. That's a daily practice that really helps with this balance between mind and making it actually rain.
Yes. So it's a little bit of a process, but once you get this, it's like, it's a game changer on everything.
Right.
It's a little spiritual, but we're going to go down the path of, I say to my clients, we don't really know where we are. We think we're on Earth. We have this idea, but we don't really know where we are. Some scientists will get very mad at me for this, but we don't really know. We have all sorts of ideas, but we don't really know. And so since we don't really know where we are, is it a matrix? Is it a hologram? Is it this? Is it that? Are we here? We don't know. Since we don't really know, we have to remember, okay, we don't know that. And we have all these things happening in our lives. We don't really know what those things are either. So we're having to manage everything around us. And so I see everything as part of my play. These people are actors in my play. And if there's contrast or something that makes me, agitated or allows my emotions to go crazy, I'm like, oh, that person's only there to shift my consciousness. Everything is to shift our consciousness. So if I see that thing, I'm like, oh, that's just there to shift my consciousness. And then I thank my higher self. Like, thank you for bringing this here so I can shift my consciousness. And in that moment of gratitude, I start to find the lesson. And
Oh,
changes everything, because you're like, this isn't about that person being angry at me. This is about my growth. It's about me. It is about you, because we don't even know, like, we've gotten so conditioned to see the people and see that they're like this real thing, and they are real, but they're really there to help us grow. That's what marriages are for. That's what businesses are for. Your business is a direct reflection of your consciousness. So when you have trouble in your business, there's some lesson for you. Same thing in a relationship. If you're having something with your spouse, it's like there's something there for you to learn. And if we can just understand that every bit of contrast is an opportunity to expand our consciousness, it changes everything.
so yeah, and that is a fantastic and very applicable suggestion. The question now is expanding my consciousness, our consciousness. What is that? What does that do?
That's a good question. So the expanding of your consciousness is where it's about mastering you. It's about being able to step back and go, oh, I see that. So your consciousness can see the bigger picture. When people are, I like to say unconscious, which really isn't nice, but and isn't really fair. They're conscious to a degree. They're walking around on the earth, but they're angry all the time, or they're ticked off, and they're emotional, and they cry all the time. Like, their consciousness is kind of tight, and they haven't expanded it, and they haven't learned that all of those things are truly lessons for themselves. So it's the inner work, it's the shadow work, it's looking at, oh, this made me upset. Why did that make me upset? I used to get really triggered if someone said, well, you did whatever, you.
Yeah.
And one day I was like, my husband would do it to me all the time. I'd be like, lose my mind. And I'm like, what is that? Because it's not him.
Yes.
He's saying something. And when I went back to figure out what it was a childhood thing. And I was like, oh, I see that. And then the inner work is acknowledging that doesn't have any impact on my life. That's the past. That has nothing to do with what's happening right now. And so that expansion of consciousness is understanding that all those bits of contrast are only there for you to expand, which means that you're no longer going to react. You learn to respond. You learn to master your emotions and to be in peace more, because that's really what that becomes.
That is super useful. And I think that is perfect for our audience to understand, because that's something that's very applicable. I'm not saying it's easily applicable, because all of what we're speaking about needs, and that's, I think, a very crucial point, and I keep doing that also with my clients. We need to keep practicing, right? We need to catch ourselves and keep practicing. So I had this funny situation that I had somebody who rents real estate from my mother, of all people. He started attacking me, I thought, for something that didn't even have anything to do with me. And I exactly experienced that. So the first thing that came to mind was, okay, your biggest villains are like your biggest teachers, right? So that was the first thing. So I stepped back, because it was even, this guy was even, going against our gender. So he basically did this female thing, which I'm kind of sensitive to, So, and I did experience exactly what you said. I stepped away from the emotion, which it triggered me, right? And then I looked at that and I thought, what is this teaching me? What is this moment teaching me? And frankly, I managed to send two replies back, because obviously one reply wasn't sufficient for this guy. And it was actually not on the same level. I didn't meet him on that level, which would have been the easiest to do. I would have been in the reaction instead of in the response. And that's actually something I just experienced. So it fits really well to what you just taught us. Thank you so much, Kimberly.
You're welcome. Yeah, when we get to the point where we're responding instead of reacting, that's when we've expanded our consciousness around something.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Kimberly. It was such a pleasure to have you, and it's fabulous that you made the time. I know you're super busy, and I know times must be crazy for you, so I wish you the very best.
Thank you. Thank you. I enjoyed it. I could talk about this, and if one person is like, oh my God, that's it, and it changes your business so you can help more people with whatever it is you're doing, that's what this is all about.
Exactly. So let's continue doing that, and let's continue the dialogue. Thank you so much, Kimberly. It was such a pleasure as last time. No, even better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.